Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, please.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can see.
Yes.
Okay. This, I think
Yeah,
this
we
is
can
it.
see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to go over what we discussed the other time very quickly. Last time I took about an hour to get through all of this, and Tina just made mention that I should use only 5 minutes, and so I'm just going to skim through it very quickly, and then Richmond would be able to finish up hopefully quickly today. So welcome to the third part of the Commonwealth Scholarship Application webinar. This is specific for the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and we are hoping that all of you who have joined our webinar are, prospective applicants, and so, you'd be applying very soon, coming November this year. So we hope to give you a very short guide as to how the scholarship is. So first of all, the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission has about 3 scholarships under its umbrella, which are all masters. We have the Commonwealth Masters, the Shared Masters, and then the Distance Learning. What we are more interested in is the Shared Master Scholarship. And so we went through all of these, and the reason why it's a shared scholarship, actually, it's because it's jointly funded by the UK government and then partner UK institutions. And so it was also noted that you can apply as many as you want. Okay, so you have several courses and several universities, and you can apply to as many as you want. And so Richmond, for instance, applied to about 9 schools, and he was able to get nominations for almost all 9. Yeah. So there are specific instructions that you need to follow, and all of these are also present on the university website. So with this application, what you have to do is to apply directly to the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship on one part, and then also apply to the school in which you are going to apply to, or you'd be attending. You have 2 applications going in both directions, because it's more of a liaison between the 2 entities, the school itself and then the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship Commission. So we also noted that we have about 47 universities. Highlighted in red are the universities in which myself, Richmond, and then Tina attended. I went to Brunel University in London. Richmond went to Newcastle University. And then Faustina also attended St. Mary's in Twickenham, London. Next, you're looking at the financial assistance that you get from this scholarship. We have approved airfare from your home country to the UK, and then, upon your return journey, you also get an airfare, that will be able to take you back at the end of your scholarship. We also have approved tuition fees. Your fees are being catered for. Mine was about 25,000, and that was also covered. We have stipends. If you live within London, you are going to be paid £1,690 per month. But then if you're outside of London, you have 1,378 per month. That's because the London metropolis is very, very expensive. And so you want to, of course, you're going to spend a lot. That is why the stipends for London are quite high. And then we have warm clothing allowance, which is also given to scholars to feel warm during the winter season. So you're able to get warm clothing for the winter. And then we also have thesis grants. In preparing your thesis or your dissertation, an amount of about £250 to about £500 is awarded to every scholar to be able to prepare their thesis for submission. We also have a study travel grant, which is also given to scholars who wish to travel around the UK or, travel overseas outside of the UK. And then we also have a TB test that is supposed to be done in your home country before going to the UK. There's a mandatory test that you need to apply for your UK visa. And so it's about £100. And so when you get back to the UK, hopefully you'd be refunded. And then if you are widowed, divorced, or a single parent, you're also given child allowance of £590 per month for the first child, and then £146 per month for the second and third children if they are under the age of 16. And then they should be living with you in the same address in the UK. And so these are the eligible countries in red. The people that I know that would be joining this webinar. We have Bangladesh, Ghana, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, Uganda, and of course you have other countries that, pardon me if I can't, mention your country. And to be considered for this scholarship, you need to be a citizen of an eligible Commonwealth country. So by eligible there, it means that there are certain Commonwealth countries that are, high income countries like Canada or even Australia. Okay, those countries are not eligible for this scholarship. This scholarship is mainly for middle and low income nations. So mostly if you saw your country in the previous page, you fall under these category. So if you're a citizen or you've been granted refugee status in any of these countries, it means that you are eligible for the scholarship. And then next, you need to be permanently resident in this country. And then you should be available to start your academic studies in September 2026. And then by September 2026, you should hold at least a second class upper, or even if you have a second class lower, you should have an attached master's degree to it. And then you shouldn't have worked or studied for more than one academic year in a high-income country. So maybe if you studied in Europe or even in North America, it means that you are not eligible for the scholarship. And then you should be unable to afford to study in the UK without a scholarship. And then you should also have all your supporting documentations in the required format. We'll look at some of the supporting documentations and then the required format in which they are, requesting. So first of all, you need a valid passport with your photograph and then your date of birth and then the country of citizenship. And then you also need your transcripts from your university to show all the courses that you've taken, all the backs. And then if for some reason your country does not provide transcripts in English, you'd have to get a certified translation into English. And then you need to make sure that all pages are also included. And then you also need a CV, neatly written. And you also need letters of recommendation from 3 professors or at least 3 people you've worked with closely. And then these ones are required later on in the stages of the application. So first of all, you submit their emails, and when you are nominated for the scholarship, that is when they reach out to this referees that you've submitted, and then they would be able to provide recommendations for you. And so when you do the application, which is normally in November, nominations come around April, May. So that is when they'll be requesting for their letters of recommendation. So that would be like a 5-month gap. And then we have a checklist. I've gone through all of this. You need to be a citizen. You need to be permanently resident. You need to be available to start academic studies, your degree, and then you should be unable to afford to study in the UK without a scholarship. And then, so from there, we get back to completing the application form. And so with that, first of all, you're supposed to list all the undergraduates and then postgrad university qualifications that you've obtained, and then list up to 10 publications and prizes that you've had, and then details of your employment history, and then the names and positions of 3 referees. Yeah, it's the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
almost.
you had the application form, which Richmond will go through. So I think you can wrap up so that you take it from there.
Okay. So you'll be listing the names and then the positions of 3 referees who are qualified to comment on your capacity for the scholarship. And then for the essay part, Richmond is going to take care of all the essays that, this is what we mainly talked about in the second part of the webinar. And Richmond started talking about some of the essays, and then he's going to complete it today. And if I have anything, I'm going to add to what Richmond presents. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're able to meet your time today. Thank you. So Richmond, I think you can continue from there.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen like I did last week. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just going to be a recap of what I spoke about last week. And I'm touching basically on the impact statement, which I did last week. Today, I would be talking about 2 other ones, study objectives and career plans. Initially, I thought I could do all 4, but I realized there is more to be done in each of them. And so I'm just going to talk about 2 of them, study objectives, career plans, and then a few other things. So back to impact statement. So like I said last week, see this as a grant application. And what you're going to do is to tell the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission that Ghana has got a problem, this specific problem. The government has tried to address it. They've done ABC. There's been improvements since those interventions were made or those policies were implemented. Yet the issues still persist and it's affecting people. And so the UK government should train you, give you the skills you need to be able to address that. Yeah, so this is what you're telling them, and you need to convince them because somebody might be telling the same story as you're doing, perhaps the same issue as you faced. Yeah. So the impact statement is broken into 4. The first is a problem statement, like you're writing a research problem where you talk about the statistics, you talk about the population most affected, the people who are involved in providing solutions to that, who usually are the stakeholders, what they've done, the successes they've achieved, why the problem persists, and why there's a need to intervene, and what might happen if there's no intervention. Yeah. So the question is about, or is asking you, to explain how proposed scholarship relates to development issues at global, national, and local levels. It also asks you to explain how it connects to your CSC development theme and wider sector. So there's how it comes. But
Hello,
what you're
Richmond.
asking, yes.
Can you put it on slideshow? Thank you.
Is it fine now? Is it on
I think it's still
slideshow?
the same. I think it's still the same.
I don't know why it keeps happening this way. It's on slideshow here, but
All right.
is that how you can see?
We can, but we want it in a larger form, I think.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it appears this
Or you
very
can
way.
continue.
With the larger form, hello, can you hear me? With the larger form, I think you should try to do it from your end.
Do you mean that font sizes are small? Is that what you want to suggest?
I request that for
So
slideshow.
I think what's happening is that I think what is that your entire screen is showing. Okay, so
Yeah.
what you can do is to share. Once you hit share, you can hit screen because you have screen and window when you hit share. So you select screen and then you can project whatever you have on your presentation. Yeah.
Right, let me try again and see. How about this?
Okay. Yeah, it's better
Perfect.
now.
Perfect now. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, good. So back to the questions, explain how your proposed research or your proposed scholarship relates to development and that. So these two questions is broken down to what I've written down there. So the question is asking you to tell the problem in your home country or your city or your community or even at the global level that you want to address, and to explain how the problem is linked to Commonwealth Scholarship Commission's development themes, which Clinton spoke about, and the wider sector. So it may not necessarily be their development themes. It could be sustainable development goals or national development goals or even local development goals. But in either case, it will still fit into one of the 6 Commonwealth Scholarship development themes. Yeah. So how do you approach this question? There's a format for writing problem statement in research, and it still applies here because you're almost telling the same story. And it may not necessarily follow the same format. Some may start with population and continue with statistics. But whichever way you want to arrange them, it must contain these essential elements. So you must have statistics there or background to the problem you want to speak about. So if they say teenage pregnancy, background to that. If it is about diabetes, you want to speak about that. If it is about stroke, a background to that. There's no need to define them. Like if you want to talk about food security, there's no need to start by defining what food security is. You don't have the space to do that. You've got 200 words to tell us the problem in your home country, which you want to address, and how it links to development. 200 words. And you must use it for exactly what the question is asking you to provide. So you would begin with statistics or data or background information about the problem, the population or subpopulations or communities most affected, the key stakeholders of the issue, policy aspect, positive aspect, of the present situation, the barriers or challenges to solving the impact of the problem, and potential implications if the problem is not addressed and if the issue is addressed. So it could be the benefit if the issue is addressed, or the implications if the issue is not addressed. Either case is fine. So instead of going, oh, if you don't address this issue, this is what is going to happen, you could also say, if you address this issue, this is what is going to happen. If you address this issue, you are going to save 2,000 children per year who die from hunger. If you don't address this issue, you are going to lose 2,000 children to hunger every year. It's either side, it's fine. Yeah, and how it links to development theme. So this is a sample I provide using hunger as my main issue. So I have broken them down into these 7 sub areas, and I've colored them accordingly. And I was speaking about hunger. So about 4 in 10 Ghanaians go hungry every day, with rural urban migrants bearing the brunt or the highest burden of daily food insecurity. So about 4 in 10 is the statistics. Rural to urban migrants are the main population affected by the issue. And then I talk about where the data is coming from. So these are not real world issues. I just developed them for the sake of this presentation, and the source is not coming from Ghana Statistical Service. No. Just wanted to show you how the references should go, because this is a pure academic writing, and so you need to reference where your data is coming from. So it may not necessarily be from this, yeah. So although the government of Ghana has implemented some programs, and one of them is the No Hunger Project. This is also an abstract program. It's not something which is real. I just drafted it. So although the government of Ghana's No Hunger Project has contributed to reducing hunger prevalence from 37.8% in 2016 to 35.0% in 2020, recent World Bank reports show prevalence of moderate to severe food insecurity rising from 36.6 in 2022 to 42.4 in 2024. And the rates are even higher expected to be higher among urban poor communities. Remember, I've already spoken about the main population here, who are people who move from rural communities to urban communities and often settle in the informal areas. Yeah, so they come there unemployed and do not have money to buy food, some no rent. And so it becomes a major issue. Even when government is implementing policies to address that, it may not be enough to meet the growing demands. And so key barriers to addressing this problem include climate variability. So food production may have gone down over the last few years because of climate changes, which by extension affects people in urban communities where food prices tend to be higher compared to those from or living in rural areas. And then there's high unemployment rate, which also tends to be more common among people who have moved from rural to urban areas and still haven't secured a job. And then there's lack of strategic national policy frameworks. Yes, so I brought this because this is where I want to base much of my argument and say, yes, the government is doing well, but we haven't got strong strategic national policy frameworks which will be able to address these issues. Yeah, so the problem or barriers tend to be multifaceted, but I would focus mostly on these 3 or at least the last two. Yeah. So what has this problem caused? The impact has been far-reaching, and recent studies have linked the recent increases in theft, narcotic trade in use, and sex work, and widespread physical and mental health issues in Ghana to hunger and food insecurity. So how are you going to address it? Addressing this would need multifaceted, multi-sectorial partnership, which will call for both rigorous research and evidence-based policy design. So remember, I've mentioned here that we lack strategic national policy frameworks. And so if you need to address it, then we must go back in addressing these challenges. So if there's climate variability, you must start looking at that. But these are not things you can achieve in the short term because it takes time to see effects in these areas. But for national policy frameworks, it can be drafted within the 5 years after your graduation, which is more realistic. And you could also help to improve unemployment rate among people who settle in informal areas. Yes, so addressing these is going to require multifaceted partnership between the Ministry for Agriculture, Ministry for Health, and other sectors, including local and international stakeholders. Yeah. And you would also need food policies to be developed. And it must be developed in the context of benefiting people who live in urban areas, poor urban areas, slums, and people who move from rural communities to urban areas to seek employment. Yeah. So if you've written to this point and you've mentioned that addressing this issue would require multifaceted collaboration and evidence-based policy design, an area where there's so if you leave it here, then the question will be that is it that we don't have people who have expertise in drafting policies to address this issue? So I wouldn't wait for the one reviewing my application to think about that. Then I add it to the sentence and say, yes, this is what we need, but there's still significant human resource gap in this area. And so a postgraduate degree in food security and policy will equip me with advanced analytical skills, stakeholder engagement strategies, and intervention frameworks to help address this issue. And what is going to happen if you don't address it? If you don't address it, then Ghana risks achieving Sustainable Development Goal 2 and the cost. So the Sustainable Development Goal 2 is aiming at alleviating hunger. So by 2030, we hope that nobody wakes up in the morning or goes to bed hungry and thinking about what to eat the next morning or the next day. Yeah. And if we don't address it and think that, oh, we might address it later on, the cost may be higher. It may be higher because, remember I said recent research have linked food insecurity and hunger in Ghana to theft, narcotic trade and use, and coerced sex work, and widespread physical and mental health issues. So if you allow the problem to be there without addressing it and think that you can address it later on, then what you're allowing to happen is the problem is there and the implications of the problem also keep compounding. So narcotic trade and use keeps going up. People still trade in sex as a means of survival, and people still be battling with mental health issues. So in the long term, if you come back and you want to address this problem, first you would have to deal with the excesses of hunger and food insecurity, which are the narcotic trade use and its effects, which are the sex trade and its effects. You would have to deal with all that before you come to tackle the main issue about hunger and food insecurity. And the cost will be higher if you had addressed it earlier, where you probably would have addressed a few issues related to narcotic trade use or its implications and then hunger. Yeah. So I am telling the people, that is a Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, that my degree can't wait. It can't wait because if you allow me to wait, say 2 years, or if you don't allow me to come this year and decide to come next year or next 2 years or whatever, the cost that we would need in addressing this issue back in Ghana would have increased because a lot of issues would have also come into play, not just the hunger and food insecurity. Yeah. The second question is asking you how you intend to apply the new skills once the scholarship ends. And this is asking you about 3 things: how you're applying the new skills, how you intend to collaborate with institutions and local non-governmental organizations and policymakers, and how you intend to promote long-term inclusive change through these partnerships. The Commonwealth is more interested in collaboration. And so if you are awarded a scholarship and you come around February the following year, so if your program is starting in September or October, usually around February, we have the biggest conference held in London where all the scholars from across the Commonwealth countries, PhD and master students meet there. And it's team connect and collaborate. So you meet there, connect with people, and you collaborate. So somebody might be addressing the same issue, perhaps in Kenya, and you are coming from Uganda, and another person is coming from Nigeria. You meet there, they group you into themes like you've spoken about. You discuss what you intend to do when your program ends and the problems you intend addressing. And so what I'm saying is that the Commonwealth is more interested in those words: partnership, collaboration, networking, yes, long-term inclusive development and that. And so when you're addressing this question, it's always good to use those words than say, I will do this, you can achieve this alone. Not even the government. The government needs people to address such issues. So you as an individual, it might be quite impossible to do it. And that is why you need to include those words. I would collaborate, I would partner with, and all that. Yeah. So there's a sample. So drawing on existing professional networks, you see how I started. I didn't just say I plan to collaborate. Yes, I could just go straight away and say I plan to collaborate with, which is fine. But I want the one reading my essays to appreciate the fact that I have existing networks. I have existing networks with people who matter in addressing this issue. And so for me, unlike another person who is applying from, say, Nigeria, I don't need to come back home, or after the program, I don't need to struggle to network with people before getting started. I already have the professional networks. And it's easier to convince somebody who wants to fund you when you say it this way than when they think that another guy is now going to build networks to do it. Yes, whatever the case, you still need networks and you still build networks. Nobody has ever done it all. But if you start this way, it gives them an idea. The guy knows what he's doing. He already has the established networks that will get him started and that. Yeah, so I plan to leverage these professional networks, collaborate with the policy division of the Ghana Ministry of Food and Agriculture to co-develop. So I didn't say to develop, but to co-develop. So co-design, co-develop, co-create, co-implement. So we are doing this as a partnership, and they tend to like those words. Policy interventions that will tackle hunger. Probably that will address hunger. Some keywords. I will also draw on expertise from the University of Leeds. So this is also something I just drafted. It might not be. I don't even know if University of Leeds has got that program, but yeah, it could be University of Glasgow, it could be Cambridge, it could be Oxford, whatever. University of Leeds Global Food and Environment Institute to adapt. So adaptation is very important. And if it is about clinical research, we have, adapting best practices. So when you come to the UK and you're networking with people, you're also learning the best practices they've developed over the years to address the same issues and how you can tailor that to your country. Yes. So I am in the UK, I am studying, but I'm also looking at the best practices, learning the best practices in the institute or university where I am studying. The research going on there, which matters to the problem I intend to address. And having gained these insight and experience and knowledge, when I go back home, I'm going to adapt them to suit the Ghanaian context in addressing this issue. Also, through joint initiatives with local non-governmental organizations, such as then you add some examples, I will contribute to building inclusive monitoring systems and participatory food security programs. Yeah. And this cross-sector partnership would strengthen national response strategies and would also support Ghana's commitment to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is no hunger by 2030. So this is just handovers. I think it's more than handovers. It's about 102 or something, or 105. Yeah, but I would have reduced it some way or the other. Yeah. So this is how it goes. And you end it there. You're going to expand this later on when you're writing your short-term career plan. So this is just a brief about what you intend to do, but you would expand it later on. Yeah. The third question is asking you what you would expect to change in development terms following the scholarship. So remember, you said up here that you intend to collaborate with people and you are looking forward to implementing some policies and programs and initiatives in addressing hunger issue in Ghana, and it's a project. So we expect that after some time, certain things would have changed. Some indicators should have changed compared to how they were when you started. So prevalence of hunger may have changed over the course of time as you implement your initiatives. Food insecurity prevalence might have also changed. Yeah. So that is what the question is asking you to provide. And it should include the outcomes that you aim to achieve, the time frame for their implementations, and who the beneficiaries will be. So here, key things you need to state there. I've seen people write in paragraphs. It's fine if it captures how it needs to be. But the best way to put them is to write them in bullet points. If you want classical examples, you might want to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and how they were written. Bullet points give you time frames, population, measurable indicator, quantifiable change, and what you expect would change. Also note the difference between outcome and output. I've explained that. Outcome, sometimes referred to impact, is the end product of output. So if my idea is to say I'm writing about prevalence of malaria in a community, and I say malaria prevalence is say among children under 5 years is say 50%, or say 500 per 100,000 population of children below 5 years. And I write that, say by 2029, I would have distributed. And one of the issues I have identified from the literature is that people don't sleep under insecticide treated mosquito net. And I write as part of what I expect to change that by 2029, I expect to have distributed insecticide treated mosquito net to say 20,000 population in a specific geographical location. What I have done is just an output. I've shared insecticide treated net. Whether or not the people sleeping, I don't know. Yes. So the real impact or our output will be when the people sleep under the insecticide treated net and the prevalence or incidence of malaria under among children under 5 years has reduced. Then you would say your project has made an impact, not when you have just shared the net. I've seen people use new nets to make fences around their house and use it as a garden. Meanwhile, they don't sleep under insecticide treated net. So it might just be a waste. You've just shared as many nets to people, but they are not using it, and the problem may still persist. So the real impact is where we see things changing in terms of numbers, where people feel that something has changed in their lives. If you're doing a qualitative study and they say, oh, you feel that our lives are now better, our children don't fall sick as they used to be. Yeah, those are the real impact. You need to know the difference because it really matters. Yes, if you are writing for such programs. So these are samples. So I've updated what I brought last week for the purposes of today's discussion. I've added some of them. So the expected outcome of the project will be by 2027. So remember, I've stated them here that you need population, you need certain, you need time frame, you need measurable indicator, quantifiable change. So by 2027, which is the time frame, community advisory committee established with representatives from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Ghana Traditional Council, which is an area in Ghana. These are abbreviations. I would have written them in full, and migrant-led CBOs. By 2026, 2 pilot agroecological demonstration garden operations would have been established in Nungua and Sakumona, and we would have engaged at least 10% of target households, boosting vegetable yields by 15%. By 2027, real-time digital dashboard would have been launched, reporting monthly food security and income metrics across all project sites. By 2028, demonstration gardens expanded into 5 additional zones, engaging. So I've given you time frame, I've given you the communities, I've given you what I expect to change in quantifiable terms. I've talked about the population and then what will change. Yeah. So this is what you would want in each of them, like I've stated up there. So another one could be, say, by 2030, moderate to severe food insecurity among target households. I would have stated the households if I have more words. So target households in informal settlement in Greater Accra region of Ghana would have reduced to no more than 29.7%, which is less than the baseline of 44.7. Yeah. So this is how it needs to be. You need to have your time there. The indicator, which is moderate to severe food insecurity. You have your target population. Then you have your quantifiable change there. And this is how you need to state them. Yeah. If you want more samples of how they should be, you can look at the Sustainable Development Goal 2, where there are a number of similar ones on hunger, food insecurity, and related issues. So who will the beneficiaries be? So the people who benefit from your knowledge are the beneficiaries. So you can have direct beneficiaries and indirect ones, so immediate beneficiaries. And so people who live in rural urban settlement, informal settlements in Greater Accra region, who comprise those who have moved from rural areas to urban communities in Accra. And then informal sector workers, children under 5 years, and pregnant women, who tend to be those most affected by hunger and food insecurity. Local non-governmental organizations, remember, I said up there that after my study, I'm going to collaborate with local NGOs to implement programs and initiatives to address food insecurity and hunger. And so by engaging with them, I'm going to contribute my knowledge, expertise, and research skills and insights that I've gained from the UK to help them also in the programs. And so they're also going to benefit from my knowledge. I'm going to partner with local institutions like the National Youth Employment Agencies, and those who work there are also going to benefit from that. I'm going to work with district planning officers and agricultural division officers, urban development committees. So all these people would benefit from what I would go back home with. Yeah. Then the last part of the impact statement asks you how you're going to know whether or not you've achieved what you say we want to achieve. So you said prevalence of food insecurity would have reduced, hunger prevalence would have reduced. How will we know that you've achieved this or these indicators have changed? So there's a this question is like asking you to write the methodological section of a typical evaluation research. Yeah. So how would we know, or how would we evaluate your program? This is what the question is asking you to do. So you need to provide a clear approach to quantifying and verifying the real world changes your work will deliver, and the types of evidence you want to gather, whether quantitative or qualitative evidence, the evaluation designs and methods you intend to use, and how you're going to report them, how you're going to disseminate them, and how you're going to validate the results. Yeah. So here's a sample. An extensive evaluation plan detailing scope and objectives will be finalized in consultation with the project stakeholders before you even launch the project. So like I told you, there's a grant and a grant to undertake a project. And the project is that hunger is a major issue, food insecurity is a major issue, and it affects people who settle in informal areas in Ghana, mostly in Greater Accra. And there are those who have moved from rural communities to settle in Greater Accra to look for work and that. Yes. So
your mic is off.
oh, sorry. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. There's a typical section of an evaluation research, the methodological section of an evaluation research. So how are you going to know that all those things you've mentioned up there, you've achieved them? So what you need to do is to evaluate your project. And your project is that you're going to do certain things, which I'll talk about in a bit. So an extensive evaluation plan, which will detail the scope and objective of this evaluation, will be prepared in consultation with all those who matter. So the people most affected by the challenge. So there are those beneficiaries I spoke about up there. So the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, people who settle in informal areas in Greater Accra region, development partners, non-governmental organizations working in food security and also hunger. Yeah. So you need to speak to them and let them understand that this is what you intend to do. And as part of the project you want to do, you need to do evaluation to know if your project has made any impact. And to do that, you need to draft an evaluation plan, which has scope and objectives. And in that, you'd mention standardized indicators. So the standardized indicators are those that you mentioned when you are looking at what you expect to change. So the indicators are community advisory committee, agroecological demonstration gardens, digital dashboards, what again? Yeah, so those are the indicators you'd be working on. Yeah, so standardized indicators, which includes food and agricultural organization, food insecurity experience scale. This is the old one I used last week. I would have updated because I have updated the outcomes, expected outcomes. So these are the indicators you would need and some more. And you would systematically measure them at the baseline, the mid, and then the end line. So before you start your project, you'd indicate what the baseline is. So what is the prevalence of food insecurity? You note down. What is the prevalence of hunger among the population? You note down. How many agroecological gardens you have there? You note down. So you take all those things and note them down because they will serve as the benchmark. And at the end of the day, you'd say, when I was starting, there was no agroecological garden in this community. And after my project, I've been able to help people build or make agroecological gardens across, say, 2,000 households in this district. I've been able to help reduce food insecurity prevalence by this margin. I've been able to, or I've contributed to reducing hunger among informal settlers in Accra by this margin. Yes, so that's why you take the data. So you collect data at the baseline in the course of the project and at the end line. Usually you need to do the midline evaluation as well. So you know if the project is on track or not. In areas that needs improvement, you amend them as same. And data would be captured using surveys. You can also use digital monitoring tools. You can also use qualitative methods where you ask people, oh, how do you feel now compared to initially about food security or insecurity? And then they tell you, oh, in the past, when I was going to bed, I was so concerned. I don't know what you were going to eat the next morning, but now I feel very empowered because I have my own gardens and I'm working now. And now I don't feel threatened or I don't, I don't think about going hungry again. Yeah, so these are statements of impacts where now people feel that their lives are getting better compared to before the implementation of your project. And you did say, oh, after my project, these are the words from the people who benefited from it. Yeah, and those are the things that the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission might be interested in seeing, that you're making real world impact in the lives of people. Yeah. So food insecurity or food security and hunger indicators changes in projects. So after you've collected all this data, you now compare the baseline to the end results and see whether or not there are changes. So when you're starting, prevalence of food insecurity was, say, 42.7%. After 5 years of your project, it came back to, say, 37. Then you did say, oh, my project has contributed to reducing prevalence of food insecurity by this margin. Yeah. Usually, you would not say your project did, because if you say so, then you're inferring causality, which is quite difficult to come by, because except if it's a typical interventional study, you might not be able to claim all the glory for yourself. But what is important is that there's change and there's positive change. And you did say, yes, my project has contributed to that. So if you say contributed, it could be your project only, or it could be other people's projects, or a combination of the two, which is fine. Then when you have done all these analysis, you need to write an evaluation report. And you disseminate the report to all those that matter. So from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to the British Embassy in Ghana to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, and all those who matter in this, all the stakeholders who matter here, you need to disseminate your reports to them. Yeah. So that was what I spoke about last week. At this point, I feel I've set the tone for today's discussion. Yes. So we are building on this same story. And the next question asks you about, because the next question tends to be long, I've written them in Word document. So I'm not able to project them like the PowerPoint. Yes, I can share the screen, but it might not be the same as you would have seen in the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, just a minute. It's still there. Sorry. So the next question asks you about what your objectives for the award is. It seems I missed one question here. Can't seem to remember. Faustina, is that the continuation?
Continuation for, yeah.
For the questions, it appears I missed one question.
Oh. I think you're on the volunteering. You've talked about that.
No, I haven't spoken about that yet. That will come later on. But I feel
Okay.
there was a question somewhere around here. I can't seem to remember, but there were two questions around. Yeah, there was a question about your study outline, I've forgotten, which was around handlewares. Yes, I'll talk about that later on. It's not a big deal. Okay, so the next question is about what are your objectives for the award? So what are your objectives for the Commonwealth Scholarship? So here, in answering them, you break them down into three. Academic objectives, which comes first, networking and volunteering for development, which follows, and then extracurricular engagement. So your primary reason for coming to the UK is to come and study all the models and get all the experience and go back home and implement that knowledge and skills to address the issues spoken about. Yes, but there are things you would also do along the line while you're still here, which matters also to achieving what you said you want to achieve. And it will fall not necessarily in academic objectives, but in networking and in extra academic engagement. Yeah. So the first paragraph, I've broken them down into three paragraphs. The first is about the academic objectives. So here you are going to tell them what you intend to achieve in the classroom and in the university, specifically for the program you're going to study. Yes. So things you need to mention are the skills you hope to gain, but more importantly, transferable skills. So transferable skills means that skills that you gain from here, which you can send back home and use them to address the issue you want to address. Yes. So I start by saying, through the MSc Food Security Policy Program. I don't know if it is the same program I stated out there, but yeah, it should be the same. Through the MSc Food Security Policy Program, I aim to gain advanced knowledge and expertise in food systems governance and policy analysis. So I'm more specific here. I want knowledge, I want expertise or skills in food system governance. And also want skills in policy analysis. Remember, I've said up there that if we've got issues with policy analysis, policy development in our country, and it is an area that needs bridging. And so trained me in the UK. So when I come here, I should link whatever I'm going to say here back there. So the one reading knows that I said I want to come and do masters in food security policy. And I want to do this because Ghana has huge capacity gap in this area. And so there's an area that I want to develop. So in the first line, I say, yes, I want knowledge, I want expertise or skills in food systems governance. I also want skills in policy analysis, so food policy analysis. And I would achieve this by engaging with core models. So now I'm beginning to list models so the models are like the courses. So back home you say, yeah, like you're reading medicine, but you're taking courses in anatomy, physiology, whatever. Yes. So here you're going to read MSc Food Security Policy. That's your program. And you do models on policy evaluation, sustainable supply chains, and econometrics. Yes. And by engaging in these core models, you aim to gain transferable skills in food systems governance and also in food policy analysis, which will be relevant to what you want to do back there. So by employing GIS workshops and case studies, your dissertation will examine climate resilient cropping strategies for informal settlers in Accra. And this academic training will enable you to develop evidence-based policies that strengthen resilience and reduce hunger in the long term. So that is my academic objective. Then I come to the networking and volunteering. So in addition, I look forward to expanding my professional network and contributing to social development by participating in departmental seminars, Commonwealth Scholars Forums, and policy-focused student societies. So I gave example, like Model United Nations clubs. I also want to volunteer at local food banks. So we have a food bank here called the Trusel Trust Food Bank and the Fair Share. So you want to volunteer with them and community agricultural projects going on in the UK. So there are a number of volunteering opportunities if you come to the UK, and you can participate in that to sharpen your project management and cross-cultural teamwork skills. And you need this networks and volunteering experience because it will help you if you're going back to your home country. You can go with these refined approaches and leadership to support Ghana, and that will help in converting these best global practices into real world interventions to address the food insecurity issue back home. Then the final one, we'll talk about extracurricular engagement. So you would also want to engage or participate or immerse yourself with the British culture. So there are cultural events going on across the UK, and they've got museums, they showcase British culture, they have special festivals where you go to learn about all the British culture. Faustina, recently you visited a museum, right?
Yeah,
How was the
I went
experience?
to a museum. Oh, it was a lovely place. Like they have a lot of historical things there, and they have statues of their prominent people in there, Madame Tussaud. So you get to see the Queen, the King, and you get the. I saw Obama a statue, and they look exactly like human. So they have some renowned people there, and they are beautiful places to visit here. Yeah.
Good. So yes, in your free time, you may want to go there. You want to go there because you want to learn the British culture, and it's important to do this at least you come to the UK, you don't go back not knowing anything about the British people. You may also want to participate in language cafe. So back at Newcastle, they had free language classes. If you wanted, you could participate in Chinese, French. Yeah, you register for those languages free if you want to do it. So you may also want to participate in those opportunities, language cafes and selected cultural festivals, which will enhance your intercultural communication. So I don't just end there and say, oh, I'm interested, I just want to go on tour and get back and rest. Yes. But the most important in this context is that you're not just going there, but you're going there to enhance your intercultural communication, because you're going to deal with different people when you go back home. Whichever intervention you intend to apply, you would have people from diverse cultural background, and it's important to know how to deal with people from different cultural background and how you can bring different people from different backgrounds to address your issue. Yeah. You would also, this cultural literacy would also enrich your capacity to forge those international collaborations. Remember, so you couldn't solve this problem all by yourself. You need people. So you might get to the food banks or wherever, cultural festivals, museums, and meet people who share your interests, people who are interested in donating to addressing the problem you said you want to address. And one person could say, oh, I'm going to raise funds for you to do this when you get back home. Yeah. So you need all this cultural literacy to enrich your capacity to forge the international collaboration and also adapt innovative food security solutions that will help you address the unique food insecurity and hunger issue back home. So this is a simplified form broken into three. First is academics. So you can write all about academics and say, I'm just here, I'm here for books and nothing more. No, it can be shocking anyway. I had the museum just behind my hostel when I was at Newcastle, but never went there. Yes, but it would have been good to go there. Yeah. So in summary, this how you want to put it. 3 paragraphs, 1 touching on academics, 1 on networking. In here, you might also want to say you would take part in career fairs also to enhance your career opportunities and collaboration with people working in the industry. Yeah, that would have fallen under the networking and volunteering. Yes. Good. Now, the next question asks you about your short-term career plan. All right. Short-term career plan, which is the first 5 years after you've finished your program. So when you're done with the program and you go back home, ideally, what do you intend to do in the first 5 years? And that is a short-term career plan. Whatever you're going to say here should be linked to what you've spoken initially, what you've talked about initially, under your expected outcome and impact. Yes. So there's been instances where somebody just moves away from, I mean, when they get here, they don't talk anything about what they've said initially, and they just switch off. So after the program, I want to go to do a PhD. So this guy, well, PhD is fine, but how does that help to address the problem you said you've identified, and for which reason you should bring you to the UK and train you? So yes, it may not go this way. Remember, there's a grant you're writing, not just any application you're making, but a grant. So this is how you would want to break your career plan, at least for the short term. A timeline, what you're going to do, the rationale, the plan, and how that will link to what you've spoken about. So what you see here are the things I presented in the PowerPoint. Yes, these are the things I highlighted there. And this is how it goes. So 5 years, you may want to break them into first year, second and third year, fourth and five. There's no strict rule on this. Some decide to break them down into first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, whichever way, it's fine. I have described them down there, but I just wanted to present them in a tabular form this way, which makes it quite easy to appreciate what I'm going to communicate later on. Yes. So first 1 to 2 years, it's 5 years. First 1 to 2 years. What am I going to do? I'm going to conduct participatory baseline assessment. I'm going to establish community advisory committee. I'm going to launch 2 pilot agroecological gardens. Why do I want to do this? I want to do this because I want to establish or want to ground my interventions. Remember, I'm going to do intervention. And so I need to understand the community needs. And so I need to ground those interventions in real world community needs. And that is why I need to do a participatory baseline assessment and try to understand which people are most affected, where actions are most needed, and where to focus our limited resources. Yes, I also want to ensure stakeholder buy-in. So people must embrace the idea I'm bringing on board. I need to engage all those who matter in this conversation and this intervention. Yes, and that is why I need to establish community advisory committee on that. I also want to demonstrate climate resilient, nutritional sensitive practices. That's why I'm going to do 2 pilot agroecological gardens in there. So the plan is to lead household surveys among rural urban migrants. So that is where I'm trying to understand the community needs. And then I'll engage with the Ministry of Food and Agricultural Policy Division to form advisory committee. That goes for the second one, ensure stakeholder buy-in and policy alignment. And it also goes for this one. So it's in line this way, establish community advisory committee. The rationale is to ensure stakeholder buy-in. What I'm going to do is to engage the Ministry of Food and Agricultural Division and also the community leaders where I want to do the intervention, because you need to engage the people, which is most important if you are doing a participatory based research. Yeah. And then I would partner with there's an abbreviation, which is so these are things I have it just came off mind. Akupon Agricultural Research Institute. These might not be raw things, but I just want to show you how you should read. So I'm going to partner with them to set up demo gardens. So that goes for the third one, where I said I'm going to launch 2 pilot agroecological gardens in Ngwa. So here I'm more specific about communities where I want to do that, and Sokumona. And if I'm able to do all this, this is what is going to happen. But if I'm writing the essay, I will not bring this one. I just brought this to let you understand how each section of the essay links to the other. So if I do all these in the first 2 years, say 2026 and 2027, so by end of 2027, I would have been able to establish community advisory committee with representatives from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Ghana Traditional Council, and all those who matter, which goes back to the outcomes and impact statement that I wrote up there. Yeah, so the point here is that all that I've written here will link back to what I've spoken of there. So whoever is reading my essay knows that I'm not going off track. I'm still within the lanes of what I intend to achieve. Yes. And that's why I brought these points here. Yeah. The second and third and fourth year, I'm going to deploy real-time digital dashboard where we're going to track food security indicators and all that. I'm going to also expand demonstration gardens into 5 new zones. Remember, I said that I'm going to do that in just two communities. This might be small. Maybe I can do 5 here. maybe expand it to 10. This is about feasibility. You don't want to say we want to do 50 gardens, which looks quite weird to achieve. Then I'm also going to implement adaptive monitoring and evaluation framework. So the framework should start right after the start of the program, because you'll be collecting indicators along the way. Not that you are done with the program after the 5 years, and no, you start tracking the progress from the very beginning. How many people are you even working with? How is engagement going? You need all these things. You need to track all these to know whether or not you're on track and where there is the need for improvement and all that. Yeah. And then I'm also going to establish training of trainers network. And the reason is to drive evidence-based decision with up-to-date metrics, also to scale up proven agroecological models, to continually refine the activities. That's why I need to, like I said, implement the adaptive monitoring and evaluation framework to see, am I doing what I intended to do? Where do I need to improve? And what do I need? And then establish training of trainers network to build local capacity for application. So I may not be there, and the best project is the one that empowers people to be able to do it themselves, because the whole idea is not to be the messiah of the communities, but to empower the people to take their destiny into their own hands and say, yes, we've learned this and we're able to do it ourselves. After 5 years, you may not be there again, and the people should be able to replicate lessons you've learned from the UK. And that is long-term success. Remember, I spoke about how your project is going to achieve long-term success, yeah, which is classical of impact, not something you do for a year, two, and when you're not there, it doesn't exist again. Yes. So each of them, the rationale is linked here and that. And what do I plan to do? What I plan to do is to collaborate with ESRI. The full meaning is environmental system research. These are things I have it just came off mind. Yes. So if you're in Nigeria, I don't mean you should generate things off mind, but you should find things real to be able to apply them. And then work with the Macula Traders Association to add demo set. So I'll explain this later on. To conduct quarterly surveys, focus group discussions, and mobile data collections. It comes back to the adaptive monitoring and evaluation. And this will help me to know, am I on track? Are things going the way I expect it to be? And then I'm going to train and mentor local champions, which is very important. When I'm not there, not necessarily even when I'm not there, it's a sign of growth and development. So I start alone, or I start with some partners, and I've been able to train, say, 2,000 local champions who now are able to do these agroecological gardens. They're also able to teach their families how to do it. Over time, it becomes a common thing in every household, and everyone is able to do these gardens in their homes using the appropriate strategies, which is very important for what you want to achieve. Yeah. Good. So there's a table. I wanted to give you an idea about how it should be. But in real world or in application, you're not going to present the table. You're going to write them into paragraphs. So what is in the table is what I've written here. And I start this way. Climate resilient and community. Faustina, can you mute? Okay, so it's just the table I've written into paragraphs, and this is how you're going to present it. You put it this way: 1 to 2, 3 to 4. You may write them. So say in the first 2 years, in the third and fourth year, and the last year. So you start this way. In the first 2 years, I want to do this. In the final year, I want to do that. Others also break them, then say year 5, year 3 to 4, year 1 to 2, which is fine. So year 1. So year 1 to 2, this is what I intend to do. And look carefully how I start. There's more than 300 words. I would have reduced it in a way. Yeah. So climate resilient and community-based agricultural practices have shown promising to the success of food security and agroeconomy industry in Ghana. And both the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and African Food Projects have expressed an interest in working with me to expand my award-winning peri-urban farming model project. I brought this because I want to communicate with the reader that I am aware of what might be working in the Ghanaian context. I have established networks with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and the African Food Project. And that network will be very useful as I progress. Yes. So this means that I have the contacts in place to gain funding for my future projects. So this is a big project. You need funding, you need collaboration. And so they want people who have established those networks and who have shown promise that they'll be able to achieve them. Yes. It should be real. This is something that I drafted off head, but it should be something which is real. And if it is real, it would have read so nice. And so this guy is doing so well. He already has contacts in the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. He has partnership with people already working in this sector. And he's shown promise with his award-winning peri-urban farming model. So I am priming the reader's mind to say that I've got something doing already. I know what I'm going to do. I've got the networks. And so it's easier to get started. That's all that I'm seeking to do. So this means that I have the contacts in place to gain funding for my future research. So here is where the real statement starts. So in the first 2 years following the award, I plan to continue building climate resilient and nutrition sensitive programs in Nungua and Sokuma. So I'm just translating what I've written in the tables into text and hope to supplement funding from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and future. So Commonwealth Scholarship Commission has funding which people can apply for. It's such a big funding. Was it £43,000? It can be huge. Yes. So I've told them that I will continue working in climate resilient and nutrition sensitive programs, specifically in these areas. And I'm looking forward to getting funding from Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Remember, I said they have shown interest in my work. So I anticipate that I'm going to get funding from them. But I also look forward to featuring in Commonwealth Startup Fellowship calls in the future. And leveraging existing networks with researchers from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and the Ghana Traditional Council. So remember, I said I'm going to do participatory thing, and it involves working with local people and relevant stakeholders like the Ministry of Health and other people. Yeah. And that's why I brought the Traditional Council in here. Yes. I plan to lead a participatory baseline assessment, rural to urban migrant families, to understand real-world community needs and areas to focus attention. I will engage with the policy division of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to form a community advisory committee. I'm still within the first line. Yeah, so I'll engage them. And the idea is to set up a community advisory committee to co-design the study objectives, ensuring that it aligns with national priorities. So if somebody is going to fund your project, it should align with their long-term goals. Yes. And that is why I said I'm going to engage them. So I'm still talking about engagement, I'm talking about partnership, I'm talking about collaboration, teamwork, which is very important for what I want to achieve, because there is no way I could do this on my own. And I also team up with the Akupon Agricultural Research Institute to launch 2 pilot agroecological demonstration gardens in Nungua and Sakmon, building local capacity in climate resilient and nutrition sensitive practices. First 2 years gone. Third and fourth year, what am I going to do? What I intend to do is to build on those joint initiatives. So through the joint initiatives with ESRI Ghana, there's another partner who I worked with during my co-founded Omanajima project. So remember I said I've done some award-winning urban farming model here. So here again, I'm inferring that I have worked with people in the past who also work in the area I want to focus my project. And it's easier going back to them because I have already established networks there. And I look forward to deploying real-time digital dashboard, which will enable evidence-based decision-making by tracking food security and income metrics across these areas. Remember, I spoke about Nungua and Sokuma. Yeah. I will collaborate with Makula Traders Association to expand demonstration gardens into 5 additional zones, strengthening market linkages to boost household. So from the very beginning, I mentioned that people are hungry because of climate issues. And so farming, unlike the past, don't yield so much products. That's why I said I'm going to adopt climate resilient farming method. So I've addressed that. Then I also said the people, one of the issues that comes up is poverty. So I'm not just looking into making them grow food just for feeding, but also for making money from it. And that is why I intend to engage traders, people who trade in food and agricultural products, so that they can help these informal settlers sell their agricultural products and gain some income. Yeah. I also look forward to working with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to implement an adaptive monitoring and evaluation framework, combining quarterly surveys, regular community-based focus groups, and mobile data collection, so we can refine activities. So remember, I said here that I want to do this because I want to track the progress of what I'm doing, whether or not I'm on track. Am I slipping off? Where do I need improvement? And that is monitoring. So you need to keep track of what you're doing and see where you need to focus attention and areas where you might need some modifications. Yes. So through joint initiatives with these organizations, I will also establish trainers network, which will empower local champions to replicate the proven practices independently. So even when I'm not there, the community should be able to thrive on their own, because I have empowered them with the knowledge I gained from the UK, and it should live with them forever. They should pass it on to their children, young children. And that would be a bigger achievement in it all. In the final year, I dedicated it basically to evaluation. Remember, I said this is a grant application. You are making a project, and so we expect you to make evaluation, which you've even written on back there. So the fifth year, I've dedicated it to doing evaluation and writing my report and disseminating my findings. So I will lead a comprehensive evaluation and line evaluation with Ministry of Food and Agriculture Organizations Policy Division and these people, using the ESRI Ghana's dashboard to compare final outcomes with our initial objectives. So the initial objectives were the outcomes I stated there, where you would track prevalence of food insecurity, prevalence of hunger, and all those indicators. So you will draw on expertise from your stakeholders and organizations. And yeah, so some might have expertise in data analysis, some might be good in report writing. You're not doing it all alone, so you wouldn't say you would do it by yourself. So you bring in all these people. Those who are good at data collection will do data collection. Those who are good at analysis will do analysis. Those who are good at report writing will do report writing. Dissemination will do dissemination and all that. Yeah. So you engage them to draft a detailed report which highlights improvement in dietary diversity, household income, and resilience. You will also organize dissemination workshops with the stakeholders. So the Ghana Traditional Council, the Macular Traders Association, to present the findings, solicit stakeholder feedback, and explore application opportunities. Finally, we would work with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and district planning officers to develop a scaling up strategy, securing new private-public partnership to expand a model to adjacent municipality. Yeah, then you end it. So that's your short term, 5 years. This is what you want to achieve. And it should be dedicated to the problem you've written. The long term might or might not be related to that. Yeah. So briefly, this is the long term plan. So the long term plan, unlike the short term, which was linked, yeah, you could still link it to the indicators, but that was not the focus. Long term may or may not be what you've done in the past, but still, I wanted to do something in the area. So the goal, I broke them down into three: goal, rationale, and plan to achieve that. So in the long term, I anticipate, or in the long term, I plan to pioneer a Pan-African Urban Agroecology Alliance. And I also look forward to be somebody who works to influence policy and embed agroecology in urban planning, and also scale training through open access programs and digital tools. And finally, to mainstream climate smart urban agriculture across Africa. So all that I'm saying is still within climate resilient agriculture, is still within food security or food insecurity. Yes. And the rationales are those that I have listed here and the plan to achieve that. I've written them into paragraphs, which is here. So I probably will just go straight to that. Yeah. So for over a decade, you see how I started. For over a decade, governments across the African region have shown modest commitment. It still reads like what I've written in my problem statement. So they've shown modest commitment towards food security and hunger alleviation, with countries like Ghana and Kenya scaling up their homegrown school feeding program. However, these policies often remain silent, so they're often in isolation, and they lack integration with community-driven agroecological practices and real-time monitoring tools, which limit their effectiveness and sustainability. So in the decade following my project, so there is an introductory part, setting the reader's mind to why I want to do what I want to do in the long term. I could have just started from here and say, in the decade following my project, I plan to, but I want to set their mind to something that, yeah, this is the area I want to go, but not, these are the reasons informing my decision to work in this discipline. Yes. So in the decade following my project, which is 10 years, I plan to pioneer a Pan-African Urban Agroecology Alliance, uniting city governments, regional bodies, and grassroots networks to institutionalize evidence-based decision-making, train hundreds of local food system champions, and also champion policy reforms that embed resilient, inclusive food systems across Africa. And the reason is that I want to address hunger and food insecurity across the region. and I will leverage the methodologies. So I will build on the experiences I've gained from my 5 years short-term career plan and partnerships during the project to inform national and regional strategies, ensuring that urban agroeconomy is recognized as the solution to hunger and food insecurity and sustainable development in Ghana and across Africa. So as part of this long-term initiative, I plan to strengthen my collaboration and engagement with policy-making bodies. Remember, so if things work the way I've planned, I've already worked with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. I've worked with non-governmental organizations, research institutes in Ghana and across the African region during my first 5 years. Yes. And so I'm still building on these collaborations and engagement with policy bodies, making bodies, such as the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the ECOWAS, and United Nations agencies like the Food and Agricultural Organizations to translate research insights into actionable policies and programs. And my goal is to chair national technical committees because I've gained so much experience, I've gained so much insight. And so with those expertise, I should be able to chair a national technical committee on urban agriculture and contribute to global food security assessment and advise on the design of resilient municipal development plans. And through these roles, I will also support local government integrate nutrition sensitive, climate adaptive cropping systems into urban planning frameworks. And through these meaningful collaborations with local universities and research institutions, I plan to develop open access training programs and online courses, amplifying the reach of our agroecological toolkits across. So the whole idea is not to just stay in Ghana, but to scale up those best practices across West Africa and the African region, especially those areas that are rapidly urbanizing. And by collaborating with local and governmental organizations. So here I would have given some specific ones, those that are more common. And community groups, I will build scalable digital platforms that provide real-time guidance on garden management, market linkages. Remember, I've already formed collaboration with Makula Traders Association, and I would have done same across other settings. Yes, and then climate risk mitigation. Ultimately, I envision a future where climate smart urban agriculture becomes standard practice across Africa, driven by evidence, empowered communities, and robust institutional support. And this initiative, which is organized within a multi-sectorial, multidisciplinary frameworks, makes it a promising solution of hunger, food insecurity, and sustainable of food insecurity. Some may go away straight away. So in the long term, you might want to become, say, a politician, and you might want to use your position to influence policies, which is also fine. Yes. So there's no one way of going around this. Some might even go away, deviate straight away from they may not want to work in food security or whatever, but still work within. Yes. So some might not work within the food insecurity and hunger issues. They might want to go for something else, but it's good to stay within that line. Even if you want to go into policies, you should end up using your position to would alleviate or that would address hunger issues, especially among vulnerable populations like those that live in informal settlements in urban communities. Yes. So this is what I wanted to present for today. Hi, Faustina, I'm done.
Yeah, Richmond. Thank you very much, Richmond. I hope this information is very enlightening and insightful. We will now open for questions. If you have any question, you can raise your hand. You can also put it in the chat as well. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand. I think, who is that? You do fear. Is that? Yeah. Am I correct? Yeah, you can ask your question or mute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, good morning, good
What's
afternoon.
the name?
Edith Yongudofia.
Okay, you don't fear. Okay.
So thank you so much. I'm Yongudofia joining from Nigeria. So thank you so much, Mr. Richmond Ketia, for this wonderful and quite insightful session. Mine it's not just a question. I want to just get some clarification. I don't know to the admin. Are you going to add this this session to the YouTube link for the recording for us to access it again? Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Can I hear, please?
Clinton, yeah.
Yeah. So I think after this, I'm currently recording. And so after this, I'm going to upload onto a YouTube channel, and then I'll be sharing it across. Yeah. So what I think I'll do is to leave my email in the chat box, and then you guys can reach out to me. Or we could do it vice versa, where you guys would leave your emails in the chat box, and then after that, I can share it with you. I think I have most of your contacts, and so I could also, post on my status, and then if you see it, you can join in. But then I'd rather you all leave your emails in the chat box, and then that would be okay with me.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So are we still looking at this same channel, Cap Beauty Scholarship Exodus?
Yeah, right.
All right, thank you. Over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Clinton. Jonas, you can ask your question or mute and ask your question.
We do. All right, Faustina, thank you very much for the opportunity and greetings to all of you. Please, my question is for those in the sciences that want to venture into health and maybe food, what are the best fields to go to, or what are the best programs to apply to that you can get your admissions easily? Thank you.
Richmond. Yeah.
I heard him ask whether or not people with science background can venture into other areas. Was that the question?
Not really. I'm actually asking what are the best fields in the sciences and the food areas that they can apply to.
That is quite difficult to answer, honestly, because there are very diverse disciplines, even within the sciences, people from chemistry, physics, whatever. Yeah, so there's no straightforward answer to say apply to MSc drug chemistry at Newcastle or apply to Cambridge for this. But the whole idea for this project is not on the program, it's on identifying a problem. So yes, if you have, say, chemistry background, you could come to Newcastle to do MSc drug chemistry, which probably also works for people with background in pharmacology. And if you apply with chemistry background, you may have it as well. But the question comes in, what have you identified a problem in drug chemistry which you can advance? You can write a compelling essay for. Yes, if you can, then that is fine. So for somebody who has done drug chemistry, last year, Newcastle University advertised MSc drug chemistry. So if you've done, say, chemistry in your first degree, then you might be able to apply for that. Or if you've done biochemistry, or if you've done, say, pharmacology or pharmaceutical sciences, you did be able to do. Yes. So all that I'm saying is getting into the problem is often not the challenge, but identifying the best problem where you can make a very compelling essay is where the issue often lies. Yeah. So if you intend to make a switch, say you have chemistry background, you've seen that Newcastle University has advertised MSc drug chemistry, and you're interested in coming for that, then you should start thinking about what issues are there in drug chemistry, which you want to apply your skills to address. Yeah.
So I'd like to add one or two things to that. The thing about graduate school is that you can diversify. Okay, so maybe you've done an undergrad in a specific discipline. What you can do is to divert into something else. So I'll tell you a story. There is this guy who did mathematics in his undergrad, and then he went on to do a PhD in, I think, astrophysics or something. When he was done, he decided that that is not what he wants. And so he went back to school to do a PhD program, which is sandwiched with medical school. And so from astrophysics to medical school. And then after that, he decided not to do that again. And then he went into, he decided to join the Navy SEALs. Okay. So, it just tells you about how broad graduate schools can be. Okay. You can choose to go into your field or, sort of diversify into anything. What really matters is that what is the work you've done, and then, what is your potential for being able to achieve what you are trying to diversify into. And so by that, I mean that now you've done chemistry in your undergrad, and then maybe you want to go into law. Okay, so obviously they're expecting that you should have a brief background in, a general idea as to how law is, and then, being able to get, just like Richmond said, being able to get a problem in which you are ready to tackle that is inspiring you to pursue law. Okay, so all of these fields are there, and there is no specific, course that you'd apply to that is going to give you, an upper hand or anything. It boils down to, having the question and then being committed to it, being able to generate ideas on how you can solve the issues, and then how you can collaborate with people who have the same mindset as you, and then getting the work done. That is going to make a very good application as compared to, just trying to find out which course would be easier to get into. I tell you, someone who has a more compelling story, someone who has a more, thought through essay is going to get through to that course compared to someone who just looks at it and be like, this is the easiest, and so let me apply for it. I think I'll get it. No, that is not how it works. So yeah, to end, I'll just say that you can diversify into anything you want, but then you need to identify a problem and then build your ideas around it.
All right. Thank you
All
very
right,
much,
thank
Clinton, and
you.
very much, Richmond.
Jonas, are you okay?
Yes, please. I'm okay.
Yeah. Clementina, you can unmute and ask your question. Clementina. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Good evening, everyone. My name is
Good
Clement
evening.
Urumi. I'm joining in from Nigeria. First of, thank you so much to the organizers for this opportunity. So, Miss Faustina, I see that you studied in St. Mary's University, and I feel like you will be in the right position to answer this question. Say I'm interested in non-communicable disease. So, do you think writing my own essays on non-communicable disease is too broad? Or do you think that narrowing it down to, let's say, cancer or diabetes will keep me more on track? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, as you said, when you narrow it, it gives you the specific thing you really want to talk about so that your essay can be very concise. Because looking at it, you don't have a lot to write. You have like in 100 ways, in not more than 200 ways. So when you broaden it, it makes the work very difficult and you might find yourself wanting. So you have to narrow it. You get a specific condition you really want to talk about, a specific condition of public health important, then you go in that direction. But when you broaden it, chronic disease is a very broad topic. So you have to get one which is an area of concern, like a public health concern in Nigeria, so that you can narrow your essays in that field. Are you okay?
All right. Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Clinton, I don't know. I can't access the chat. I don't know whether there are other questions in the chat.
So
Let me.
with the questions,
Sorry.
we
Let
have.
me.
Okay.
Yes, please. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just a vote of thanks for the efforts. Just taking part in this. This is my first time I'm able to connect. I just want to say a sincere thank you. It feels like a lot, but definitely we're up to the task. And a special vote of thanks to Richmond. I was the one who engaged you on Facebook. I said I was from Cameroon a few days back. And I had the same worry about identifying a question given a specific field, but Clinton's explanation just answered my worry. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you too for joining. Thank you. Clinton, the question.
Yes. So Luke is asking if it is required to apply separately to your preferred university and then for the Commonwealth scholarship. And then if so, which one should be done first? So what I can say is that you need to apply. So the Commonwealth and then the school applications are two different things, which you'd have to apply to differently. Which one should come first? It's up to your own discretion, but then you need to make sure that you are applying before the deadlines. Okay. So that is the most important thing to do. You need to apply to the Commonwealth scholarship on its own and then to the school itself. The way I did mine actually was I got to know about the Commonwealth scholarship later on. I think it was very close to the deadline. So I had to submit my Commonwealth scholarship application like, minutes to the deadline. Okay. So I spent all my energy and my effort trying to submit this Commonwealth scholarship application first. And then my school's application, I think the deadline was in February. Okay. So the way this works is that the Commonwealth scholarships deadline is in December. Okay, so with that one, you can work around it and then submit it. And then my school's application deadline was in February. So I just had to submit the Commonwealth first, and then the school application went on. I think I submitted mine in January or so. Yeah. Richmond, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I in the past, some schools would ask you to, a few schools, Southampton and one other school, I forgot. Yes, I know. Southampton would ask you to submit your scholarship application. and then they go through. And if they decide to award you the scholarship, they will ask you to submit your admission. Yes, but that is the only school I've seen to do that. All the other ones would ask you to apply scholarship and admission as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Faustina,
Yes,
yeah, do you have anything to add?
I think I missed that point. I left the screen. So I missed the
Okay,
point.
okay. So there is another question from Pascal. Pascal is
So
asking
Clayton, I
if
think Emeka, there is Emeka. Chuku,
okay,
Chuku Emeka. Am I correct?
yeah,
Did you raise your
Chukwuemeka.
hand?
Yes. Good evening,
Okay.
everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I wanted to say a very big thank you to this elite team of Commonwealth scholars. Okay, this is my first time attending this webinar, but I must say it's a very insightful one. I've gained a lot of things from this meeting, but I have some questions I would like to ask. Okay, so considering the fact that if you want to apply to if you want to apply to up to maybe 3 or 4 schools, would each of the essays have to be tailored to that? Maybe if you are, let's say for example you're applying to the University of UCL, for example, would you write a separate Commonwealth essay for UCL? Maybe also write another one for maybe for something like maybe St. George College of London, as or is it does one essay like do you have to do a one size fit all essay type for the 3 schools? Maybe if you are applying for the same program. That's my question. Thank you.
Yes.
So I think Richmond will be the best person to answer this.
Yeah, so some programs are very similar. And if you look at their models, they're almost the same. So in my time, when I was applying to Newcastle and Leeds, almost had the same programs. When I checked the models, they were quite similar. So some sections of the essay is barely going to be the same from the problem statement, except the last part of the problem statement where you say, I want to go and read, say, MSc food security. Whereas the other one is food security and policy. And one is say food security. Yes. So you need to make those little adjustments. What I advise you do is to first prepare one strong essay, and then you just pick that one and make modifications in there. So if the first problem statement is mentioning anything about Newcastle and you want to use the same application for Leeds, then you modify that bit. So that part is technically not going to change. The second one, which asks you about how you're going to apply your knowledge, except that you've mentioned the school's name there or a department in the school there, it's just going to be the same. The one on impact statement, the bullet points, what you expect will change in developmental terms is going to be the same. How you are going to evaluate your program is going to be the same. The section which asks you, there's another one I didn't talk about, or did I do that? Yeah, there's another question that asks you why you've chosen to study in the UK, why you've chosen to study at this particular university, and why you've chosen to study this particular course. So there, you need to modify it, maybe entirely, maybe some little modification, depending on how the models are. But other sections like personal statement is just going to be the same. Your community service, the same. Your career plan, almost the same. Yes. So just write one good essay if you're applying to similar programs, then you can modify it. Other times, you may have to change the entire problem statement. So I was applying to Queen Margaret University in Scotland, and I was applying for MSc in sexual and reproductive health. And that essay had to be something specifically on sexual and reproductive health. But the essay I wrote for Newcastle and Leeds and the other universities was based on non-communicable disease, specifically diabetes. So I couldn't use the same essay, diabetes, for MSc Sexual and Reproductive Health program. In that case, you need to develop an entirely new impact statement. So from the problem statement to how you're going to apply the knowledge to what you expect to change in development terms, to perhaps how you're going to evaluate the outcome, to why you've chosen to study in the UK, why you've chosen to study in this university, why you've chosen to study this program, it's almost going to change from what you've written initially. But there are some sections that might be the same. And also your short-term and long-term career plans are going to change. Looking at the examples I've given you. So you see, I kept talking about food security, hunger, food security and hunger. If I was writing something on sexual and reproductive health, it entirely will be different or touch on sexual and reproductive health and issue. Yes. So that's how it is. Some programs are similar. One essay can work for them with just some modifications. Others are entirely different, and you must write a whole essay on it own. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also want to add that you can apply to as many schools as you want. Richmond, how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to 12 schools.
12 schools, yeah. And then you got nominations for 9, right? You had nominations for 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that tells us
So,
that, we can
you know,
apply
in
to
the
as
same
many
school,
as you want.
the same school, you're able to apply to 2 programs. So Queen Margaret,
Oh,
I
interesting.
applied to 2 programs there, and I got them all. So yes, if you find 3 programs there and they are all of interest, you can apply to them all.
I think during my time, I was thinking that because of the time constraints, that's the first thing. But then I was also thinking that we could only apply to only one school. And I was also thinking about application fees. And it turns out you're not supposed to pay any application fees, for all of them. So yeah, I applied to only one school, and then thankfully I got it. That is, crazy if you think about it. Any more questions?
I think somebody is asking whether or not they take application fees. So many schools in the UK for master's programs don't take application fees. A few of them do. So you need to check the school first. But I know that a number of schools don't take application fees.
Yeah.
So all the schools I applied to, none of them took application fee.
Yeah. When I was applying I think I once applied for Chevening, and it was to Manchester, Oxford, and Cambridge, and all of them were asking me for application fees. And so when I was applying for the Commonwealth, I was thinking it was the same. That was probably why I applied to only one school. But then, as it turns out, most of the schools do not request for application fees. It's unlike the US. There was one question that I wanted to read out. Is CGPA taken into account during the selection process? You want to tackle this, Richmond?
Yeah, so like you presented last time, there are 4 indicators for assessing your application. One of them is your academic records. So your academic records includes your CGPA, the grades you got for specific courses in there, whether or not you have any academic prizes and research publications. Yes, so it will definitely feature in there. Yeah. Once you meet the criteria, which is second class upper, then you qualify to apply. But when they assess it, they would also obviously take into consideration what grade you've gotten for the various courses and your overall GPA. Yeah.
And one thing I also pointed out the last time we had, the webinar was that mostly they are looking at second class upper or first class. But then if you have second class lower, you can still apply on condition that you have a master's. Okay, so if you have a second class lower for your undergrad, you should have a master's before you can apply. And then I think the reviewers, those who go through our applications, they brought out, a scheme or a feedback from how they assess the whole applications. And they also pointed out that they are a little biased towards first class. Okay, but then if you have a second class upper, you need to, have a very concrete, essay. So you build a solid plan and then you develop your ideas around it. And then with that, you can make a strong case for yourself. So there is that also to take into consideration.
Whether or not Ellen is asking, I want to know if people already living in the UK on other visas, skilled worker, eligible for it. Yeah, so Ellen, if you're already in the UK, and I've lived here for more than 6 months, you don't qualify. Is it 6 months, Clinton?
I think it's a year.
Oh, okay.
So the condition is that you need to, at least you shouldn't have lived or studied in the UK for 1 year. Okay, or any high income country, be it, Europe, America, or Australia, or even China. I think it's also a high income nation.
Good.
So if you're already living in the UK, I don't think you are eligible, at least if you've lived in the UK for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know if they can still apply if they don't have a publication.
Yes, if you don't have publication. If you don't have it's not a major requirement, you can apply. But it gives you heads up and it places you higher if you have it. But if you don't have it, no problem. You can send in your application. What it means is that you need to have scored higher in the other areas as well. Yes, some schools in the past have written back and said we chose you because you had publications. Yeah, so for those schools, I'm anticipating it might be difficult to get in there. But the cohort also changes each year, I understand. So perhaps in our time, the applications were strong, and the only way they could differentiate us from other people was to use publications. Yes, but it shouldn't be a barrier. I know people who have won it who never had any publication, so it isn't a bigger issue. Yeah, just make your application as strong as you can.
Okay, thank you. Chuke Mecca, I saw your hand up again.
Somebody is asking if they need WES evaluation. No, the UK doesn't take WES evaluation. But if your transcript is in any other language, if it is not in English, then you need to translate it into English. But if it is in English, then that is fine. Clement, Marty, something.
And before you move to that, okay, there's one thing that some of the schools in the UK request. Those are the English tests. Okay, so some schools sometimes, like UCL, would ask you for an English test. You're supposed to take IELTS or TOEFL. Okay, so that is why it's important that before you apply for the scholarship, you also need to look at the school's website and then look at the requirements. Some of them would ask you, I think some ask for GRE, but then for IELTS, I'm sure that a lot of the schools ask for it. Sometimes you can write to them and then tell them that your undergrad was taught in English, and then that should be able to waive, this offer. But then if they demand that you submit the IELTS, you're supposed to take it. So it's important that you do your due diligence on the website and then be able to find that information for yourself.
Good. Someone is asking if there is a limit for the number of pages for the CV. The application doesn't require you to upload a CV. Perhaps if you're applying to the scholarship, you don't need to upload CV. But if you're applying to a school for admission, some of them would ask you for CV. There's no strict rule on the number of pages, but the best practice I've seen is usually 2 pages, except where the school requires you to go beyond that, then that's fine. But if not, 2 pages might be fine. Yes.
Okay. Chukwuemeka. You can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. He has addressed my my question in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Somebody has 2 certificates, diploma in public health nutrition and BSc nutrition. So do I need only one? That's BSc or both, please. So Esther, I don't know if you did top up from diploma to BSc. If that is the case, then you need to submit 2 of them. Yes, but it's even the common practice where if you're applying, they'll ask you all the schools you've attended after SHS. So you would have to upload both of them, diploma and degree. Yes, so upload 2 of them, BSc, diploma, certificate and transcripts together. Yeah.
Yeah, Richmond. Do you have any other question in the chat?
No, I don't see any other questions here.
I'm sorry, I would like to ask a question. I don't know if I'm permitted to go ahead.
Yeah,
Please do.
Okay, I wanted to ask, considering maybe if, for example, in respect to the question that was just dropped in the chat box, if someone has a bachelor's already and wants to go for, and is currently maybe doing a master's and wants to go for another master's in the UK, would putting that maybe that they are currently enrolled in another master's, does it place the person at a disadvantage, or it doesn't count in maybe in respect to when the committee is evaluating the application? Thank you.
You mean you already have masters, say from Nigeria, and you want to come and do another masters in the UK? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm asking if you are currently, maybe if you are enrolled in another masters here in Nigeria, but maybe you are almost towards completion, and you want to apply for another master's in the UK. I was trying to ask if putting it in the application, does it place the person at a disadvantage, or is best to just leave it and to keep silent about it? That's what I wanted to ask.
Well, I know people who have come here in the past who were completing master's program, but I'm not sure whether or not they indicated in the essay if they are doing masters. There is a question which says that you should not be enrolled in another master's program as at the time of the start of your program. Yeah, so if you are finishing before the start of your master's program, I think that should be fine. But it couldn't be that you are enrolled in one master's program back home and you're also on Commonwealth scholarship. It might not fit well. Yes. I don't think they have a problem with you completing a master's because they stated it. If somebody has second class lower and wants to apply for Commonwealth scholarship, they should have completed a master's program as well. So it shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah. But you should justify why you want to do another master's program, especially if it is the same thing. So as you've done, say, a master's in public health in Nigeria, and you want to apply for masters in public health at Newcastle or Glasgow or Cambridge, you should justify why you want to come and repeat the same program here. Yep. Has no one got any question?
There is one question. Rima Ben is asking if we can use abbreviations in the impact essays.
The best answer is no.
So what you can do, if you want to use abbreviations, you'd have to, list them and then write their full names. Okay.
Yeah, so in the first instance, you might want to write them, say, Ministry of Food and Agriculture, then into brackets, MOFA. Then subsequently, if you want to sit the same thing, then you write it in abbreviation. It makes it easier. Otherwise,
yeah,
if you just write it that way, and I'm the one reading it, then I go there and see MOFA, then I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. I'm not so clear what Clement wants to say. Is the statement having a link with your thesis?
So I think what he's trying to say is probably that when you're applying for the Commonwealth, are you supposed to attach your undergrad thesis to the application? Is that what you're asking?
Or you want to mean that does the dissertation you write at the end of your master's program have to be linked to the statement your impact statement?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, if that is what you're asking, then yes, it needs to be linked. There's a section, I didn't talk about it. The next one, they ask you about.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is true, I get it now.
Yeah. So there's a question that asks you why you want to study in the UK, why this university, and why that program. It also, if you read the question, it extends on that and say you can also talk about the project you want to take and that. Yeah. So you're able to state the project you want to do there. Perhaps it should be linked to what you've been talking about. Maybe you want to do a systematic review or best practices in food systems or food policy or whatever. Yes. It should be linked there. It couldn't be that you're talking about food policy and you jump to a dissertation on sexual and reproductive health. It may not work in reality when you're here because things may not go the way you've planned, but you should propose something in your, that's why it's a proposal. You propose something that links to the development essay you're writing.
Yeah, and to add to that, you can have your application, with one specific topic in mind, and then you end up in the UK, you start your dissertation, and then, it's a completely different topic. Okay, I've even seen PhDs where people switch midway into a different area. Okay, so it happens. It doesn't matter what you submit in your proposal when you are doing your dissertation. You are not binding to, to do what exactly you had in your proposal. You can do anything else. But then I think it is better to stick with it because personally I stick with mine, and the topic that I presented for my Commonwealth scholarship, I did my dissertation on that and my master's, and that's what I'm currently working on in my PhD. Okay, and with my PhD, my current supervisor asked to see my Commonwealth application. Okay, he wanted to read the essays. Okay, so that gave him, a confident, look at me that, this is a guy who had thought about doing this before leaving Ghana to the UK, and now he's coming to the US. Okay. So it is something that, you need to put a lot of effort into, and then once you have the idea, build around it, because you never know who is going to read it. You might think that it's just the Commonwealth who is going to read it, but in my case, my PhD supervisor read that, okay, and then he was like, this guy has been thinking about this topic for a long time, so let me give him a shot. And I've been impressive since I started, so yeah, it's been a good thing.
Good.
So yeah, that is it.
Has no one got any questions? One thing I think nobody has.
So someone is asking a question that why did I leave the UK to the US? And I don't know. So I've been thinking about this. This is a question that when I was going to do my visa interview to the US, I was asked this specific question, and it was a question that I wasn't, thinking about. But mostly it's because, I wanted to have a broad experience of all the Western education. Okay, so I've been to the UK and now, in the US, just to have, a diverse, idea as to how things work in the Western world. And then hopefully when I'm done, I can apply it wherever I end up. Okay. In the end, hopefully, I'm looking forward to working in, an international organization. Okay, so it will be good. So I've studied in Ghana, in Europe, and then in America. Okay, so that was a primary reason why I had to choose the US and then leave the UK for good. But then it's also important to point out that at the end of your scholarship, you're supposed to return back home and to apply what you've learned in the UK. So yeah, I have a lot of colleagues who have return back home and they are doing great work. Yeah, but then for me, I had a PhD offer, and I had to move here and work on my PhD. I know that's a long answer, but yeah, I hope it answers you.
Akia is asking if she couldn't join early, and if there's a way she can get the recording. Yeah, Clinton,
Yeah.
Yes, Akia, you can drop your email here. Clinton might forward the recording to you. Clinton, should we end it? I think there are no questions coming again.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you all for joining our webinar. Do you think we would have to organize a new one, a last one?
Yeah, maybe last
to
one
complete what you have. So Esther is also asking another question, if she can ask any questions after listening to the recording. Yeah, you can leave a comment when you are done listening to the recording, and then hopefully we'll get back to you. And yeah, when you leave your comments, please do add your email if you're okay with that, and then we can also forward any specific answers to you. And thank you all for joining this webinar. We'll try to organize one last one, because it's left with the personal statement section, and then what else is left? I think voluntary experience.
Yeah. Just about two or three others.
And then I think you left out the detailed study plan or something like that.
Yeah. So it's left with that.
Yeah.
Then an outline for the study. And there's another one on personal statement, community service.
That is right. Yeah.
And your employment. Yeah.
So we'll organize one final one to complete all of that, and then hopefully I'll be communicating, or Richmond and I will think about it and then think of a better date, because school will be starting soon, so we'll make sure that we get it done within like next week or next 2 weeks. And yes, to answer the final question, this session has been recorded and it would be uploading onto YouTube, and then the link will be shared with everyone. So what I can do is that you can leave your email in the chat box. I'll copy it and then send it to all of you guys individually, or I can share it to you guys on WhatsApp, and then I also share to Richmond, who also distribute the link across. So yes, that'll be all for today. You have any other thing to say, Richmond?
No, I haven't got anything to say. I think I've said it all.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. And good evening, good morning, and good afternoon if you're in America. Okay. So now we are done, and we can start leaving the chat now. Okay, but then it's very cold. Oh boy, I should have worn a jacket.
Is it cold at the end?
Yeah,
Although-
it's very, very cold in here.
Oh,
And it's summer. You can't be
I
walking
thought
around with a
you're still in
jacket.
summer, right?
Yeah, but the building is very cold. It's a
Oh.
biological building, and so we keep very
Yeah,
low
yeah.
temperatures here. Yeah, that is a problem. So I can feel myself, shaking a bit because of the cold. Where is Faustina? She left.
I think so.
Okay. And it's quite late in the UK, right?
Yeah, it's 10:25, yeah, almost half past.
Yeah, still in the afternoon. Yeah.
Quite surprising how some parts of the world get night while others are enjoying daytime.
Yeah.
Oh, Richie,
Yeah, Abu,
Charlie, good job, oh, all of you.
Mm.
I'll be fine.
Oh, Charlie, I'm fine.
Good.
Finally.
I'm okay.
Ah, yeah, Charlie. That was, in fact, you were not drinking water. What happened?
It's cold here.
Master, you will get through this, so through to make you drink water.
Yeah, it's cold here.
You've really done well. Yeah, we thank you guys.
I don't
You've
usually
really,
talk
really
for so
done.
long. After
Yeah.
30 minutes, you get
Uh-huh.
exhausted to continue talking. And yeah, so usually I prefer to like break them down maybe after 30 minutes, break it down,
Mm-hmm.
then take some questions, drink some water, and then
Charlie.
take it from there. Yeah.
Mm. All right. Charlie, I hope to see you guys maybe for the last session.
Yeah. You just
Yeah.
finish after the
Okay.
last session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day, good evening, good afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I was also thinking I was surprised in that in the summer it gets dark after 10 p.m. When I first went to the
Yeah.
UK, and it was summer, and then
There's
as at
something
9
happening in the
p.m.
US.
as at 9 p.m. you can see the sun, and it's just as bright as day. Oh boy.
It makes
I tell
you
everyone and
sometimes
they,
make
they
you
can't
think
believe
that,
it.
oh, yeah, you did say, well, I've still got some
Sure.
time because you feel it's still daytime.
Mhm.
Then the next
That is
moment
true.
is
Yeah.
almost
Yeah, because when you look at the winter, for instance, it gets dark very early. Okay, so it gets dark around 4 p.m. And so you feel very tired. For some reason, I close very early during the winter, and then I go home
yeah.
and then I sleep throughout. And then, you wake up around 5 and it's still dark. Even if it's 7, it's still dark. It's just crazy. I was reading about that, and it's because the Earth is tilted by an angle of like 4 degrees. And so a portion of the Earth, when it's revolving around the sun, you know, the part of the Earth that is tilted towards the sun by the 4 degrees experiences more sunshine. So when you go to places like Norway, they have 24-hour daylight during the summer. And then in the winter, they have complete darkness for 6 months. And this happens for 6 months. When you go to places in Antarctica too, you have like 6 months daylight, 6 months, darkness. You can imagine. It's just crazy. But then in Ghana and in Africa in general, we are around, the equator. We don't see that. Yeah. I think it's because, we are not at the poles. That is why. It's just interesting to see how the world works outside of Ghana.
Good.
I'm still copying the emails. Yes. Wow. Stop recording. I've stopped the